The world outside the tall glass windows of the city's most luxurious hospital gleamed with endless light and noise, but inside room 904, silence lingered like a heavy shadow. The machines hummed faintly, the curtains swayed gently, and a girl no older than 17 lay motionless on the pristine white bed. Her name was Emily. Once, she was the heartbeat of her father's world, the daughter of one of the wealthiest CEOs in the country, a girl with laughter that could light up entire rooms, with dreams of painting the world in colors only she could imagine. But now, she stared blankly at the ceiling, her eyes dulled, her body unmoving, her hope buried deep under despair. She had been paralyzed from the waist down for almost a year now. A tragic car accident had shattered not only her body but her spirit. Doctors had saved her life, but in doing so, they had left her chained to a wheelchair she refused to use. She never spoke, rarely ate, and lived in silence. For months, her father tried everything: specialists from around the world, experimental treatments, therapy sessions, and even the best private nurses money could buy. But nothing reached her heart. Nothing could restore her lost will to live. Her father, Richard Lawson, the CEO of a global empire, was known as a man of unshakable strength in boardrooms. But every night, behind closed doors, he crumbled. He sat beside her bed, holding her hand, begging silently for his daughter to come back to him. Yet no amount of wealth or power could mend the emptiness in Emily's eyes. The mighty CEO who commanded empires was powerless in the face of his daughter's hopelessness. That evening, after yet another failed session with a top therapist flown in from Switzerland, Richard found himself in the hospital garden. He sat on a bench under a fading sunset, his head buried in his hands. He whispered to himself, "I'd give up everything, every company, every dollar, if only she could smile again." His heart was breaking, but in that moment of despair, fate quietly shifted his path. Across the garden, a man in his early 30s sat with a little boy. The man was dressed in simple clothes, nothing like the tailored suits Richard was used to seeing in his world. His hair was slightly messy, his hands worn from work, but his eyes carried warmth and sincerity. The little boy, about 8 years old, was in a wheelchair too, though his smile was brighter than the sun itself. He laughed as his father pushed him forward, and his giggles filled the air like music. Richard watched in silence. He had seen countless therapists, caregivers, and even motivational speakers, but never had he seen something so raw and pure. The boy was paralyzed, yet he was joyful. He laughed, shouted with excitement when a butterfly passed by, and clapped his hands as though life itself was a gift. His father bent down and whispered something to him, and the boy laughed even harder, his voice carrying across the garden until Emily, from her window above, faintly turned her head toward the sound. For the first time in months, she noticed something. Richard stood almost without thinking and approached the man. "Excuse me," he said, his voice hesitant, his pride quietly folding. "Your son, he's in a wheelchair too, isn't he?" The man looked up and smiled warmly. "Yes, sir. His name is Daniel. Born with a condition that took away his legs' strength, but he's stronger than anyone I know." Richard's eyes softened. He glanced at the boy again, who waved at him cheerfully. "He's happy," Richard said quietly, almost to himself. How is he smiling like that?" The man chuckled, his voice calm, but filled with quiet wisdom. "Because happiness isn't about what we lose. It's about what we choose to see. He can't walk, but he can laugh. He can't run, but he can dream. And I remind him every day that life is still worth living." Richard stared at him, his chest tightening. "My daughter, she doesn't smile anymore. She doesn't talk, doesn't even look at me. I've tried everything and nothing works." His voice cracked, the weight of months of pain spilling out. "I don't know what to do anymore." The man placed a hand on Richard's shoulder, steady and kind. "Sometimes," he said softly, "you don't need doctors or money or miracles. Sometimes all you need is kindness, someone to whisper to her heart that life hasn't abandoned her, that she is still worthy of love, even in her pain." Richard looked at him, searching his face. "Who are you?" The man smiled faintly. "My name is Michael. I'm just a single dad trying to raise my boy. I don't have much, but I have hope. And I can tell you this, no one is ever too broken to find light again." Those words sank deep into Richard's soul. For the first time in months, he felt something he had forgotten. Hope. He hesitated, then asked almost desperately, Would you talk to her? Please, just once. I'll pay you anything." Michael raised a hand gently. "I don't want your money. If I can help a child smile again, that's all the reward I need. And so that night Michael and little Daniel walked, or rather, rolled into Emily's room. At first Emily didn't even look at them. Her eyes remained fixed on the ceiling, her silence heavy. But Daniel, cheerful and unafraid, wheeled himself right beside her bed. He grinned at her and said, "Hey, I'm Daniel. Guess what? I can't walk either. But I bet I can beat you in a race, wheelchair versus wheelchair." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, for the first time in so long, Emily's lips trembled, almost as if fighting against themselves. It wasn't a smile yet, but it was something, a flicker, a crack in the wall she had built around her heart. Michael leaned in closer, his voice soft, almost a whisper, carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths. "Emily, I know you feel like your world ended. I know you think life has taken everything from you. But listen to me, your story isn't over. You're still here. And as long as you're here, you still matter. You are not alone. I'll help you." Emily blinked. A single tear slid down her cheek. For the first time in almost a year, she had heard words that touched her soul. Not pity, not medical jargon, not her father's desperate pleas. Just kindness, pure, genuine kindness. That night, as Richard watched silently from the corner of the room, he saw his daughter's hand tremble slightly. Slowly, hesitantly, she reached out, her fingers brushing against Daniel's. And Daniel, with his childish innocence, squeezed her hand and said, "See, you're not alone anymore." For Richard, it was the most beautiful sight he had ever seen. The CEO, who thought he had lost everything, finally saw the smallest glimmer of light in his daughter's eyes. It wasn't a miracle cure. It wasn't some expensive treatment. It was something much more powerful, human kindness breaking through the darkness. And for the first time in a long time, Richard dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, his daughter could find hope again.